In One Piece chapter 1130, titled The Accursed Prince, we have bounty updates from the Egghead incident, Luffy's new mark of power, and the full reveal of Elbaf's Prince Loki. The cover page features Yamato and Tama taking a nap while someone steals Yasui's sword. Frankie called out to the giant warrior pirates. It was time to quit looking for the rest of their crew. The giants couldn't believe it. Frankie explained that they haven't found anything despite all their searching, but he's sure that everything will work out eventually. Although he thanked them for looking, he knows for certain that their friends are alive. Robin agreed. They would just have to have faith and wait for them on Elbaf. Jinbei thoroughly exhausted his network of sharks and expressed his gratitude towards their giant hosts. Brook chimed in to mention that they are out of food. Starving in the pursuit was hardly a good idea. Brogy cheerfully accepted the decision thanks to their insistence. It was time for them to focus on getting back to Elbaf. The giants even called for a homecoming toast. But again, they are all out of food and drinks. After breaking free from the giant detention center, Luffy marveled at the scale of what he saw. They passed by a massive tree that he was sure must be thousands of years old. Meanwhile, Iscat ran away. But this big tree was nothing more than a sapling compared to the trees that surround them. They're currently on a mountain and it is extremely cold here. Ahead of them is a crazy long bridge. The vastness of everything was enough to make Nami's head spin, and I can't blame her. The equivalent of a human country was able to fit inside of one giant's room. They're like ants here. Just then, the crew noticed two giants making their way across the bridge. These two are Gerd and Goldberg, the doctor and cook of the new giant pirates respectively. With a huge owl on her arm, Gerd complained about their captain's decision making. She didn't get why he let someone as crazy as Road join their crew. Goldberg explained that it's because the guy is a very skilled navigator. Still, Gerd really doesn't like the guy. Although Prince Loki has a reputation for being the shame of Elbaf, she feels like Road is more deserving of the title. Goldberg laughed since he was pretty sure that Road wouldn't mind being called that. Gerd sweetly turned to her avian friend Piper to confirm that Road's crow was seen carrying a small ship. The bird agreed with a hoot and a nod. Goldberg laughed even harder. They're supposed to detain intruders, but Road keeps smuggling some in for his own interests. The Straw Hats kept out of sight. They had to keep Luffy from engaging since the giants looked like nice people to him. Although they don't yet realize, these two are subordinates to his subordinate. But if Road's example is anything to go by, such loyalty can be a bit fickle. In fact, Gerd planned on telling their mountain-bearded elder Jarul once they find them. Usopp was moved to tears by the confirmation that they have finally made it to Elbaf. Sanji was swooning over the giant beauty. Luffy tried calling out to them, but was stopped by Nami since they just said they're searching for intruders. Both giants turned in their direction at the sound, but ultimately they chalked it up to just being their imagination. They moved on to knocking on the detention center's door and called out to Road. I'm curious how much damage Nami's divine retribution was able to do to the self-proclaimed deity. If it managed to knock him out, the Block Country's residents may have been able to escape, especially since all of the Guardians are down for the count too. I really need them to spread the gospel of God Nami. The Straw Hats began making their way across the rickety bridge. It was way too long. Zoro insisted that they hurry to avoid being cornered if the giants decide to turn back. Luffy contemplated to himself while walking along the rope railing. Usopp tried to convince himself that this is just a trial to prove that they are worthy warriors. But no, it's just a bridge. Nami was freaking out. This bridge was made for giants, so the gaps between the panels are huge. Chopper tried to calm her down by mentioning that he used to cross a rope bridge like this all the time on Drum Island. He has plenty of experience with this sort of thing. In fact, Chopper is well suited for this climate in general. I made fun of the little guy for failing to break free of a normal metal collar and hoped that you guys would give me some hope for his further development. I was a bit disappointed by how few of you were willing to stick up for him. The forest below them is full of oversized wolves. Between the climate, big jumps, and abundance of animals, I really hope Chopper has more opportunities to be useful. At least he was able to translate for Iscat a little while ago. Speaking of whom, I'm surprised they ditched the big cat so unceremoniously. We still don't know how or why it suddenly turned into a lion, so I'm inclined to believe that the feline will make a return. Maybe Road's crewmates will run into Iscat before him. Zoro could tell that something was up with Luffy and asked what was wrong. Luffy wondered if the swordsman could feel something strange. It was giving him goosebumps. Sanji said that he won't be able to figure it out. Zoro prepared to make a move, but Sanji grabbed him. He yelled that Zoro can't go either, and that the forests are off limits from now on. Truthfully, with the vastness of Elbaf, if they let Zoro go, they would never see him again. He'd be lost for centuries. Luffy pointed in a certain direction and explained that he could hear something while they were in the block country too. It was a sort of roar coming from down below. Luffy didn't hesitate to jump off the bridge in pursuit of the sensation. This left Chopper and Nami in a panic. They called out to him and warned that wolves are below. Luffy is probably the only one of them that could survive a fall from that height. Usopp insisted that this was nothing to a brave warrior as he held onto the rope. At the very least, it seems like being on Elbaf is enough to inspire the sniper to try harder. Being cowardly is as much a part of Usopp's character as Sanji's perversion is for him, so we can hardly expect him to ditch it. But I am excited to see how far this enthusiasm will take him. With that, the rest of them were left across the bridge without their captain. Over on the giant pirate ship, they were losing their minds over the morning paper claiming that they attacked Egghead Island. The old pirates wondered why the tabloids were so blatantly spreading lies. It was too small for them to read, so Robin read it out loud. It spoke of the giant warrior pirates waking back up after being gone for 100 years. That they set fire to Egghead Island along with the Yonko, Straw Hat Luffy. With that, Dory the Blue Ogre and Brogy the Red Ogre have each been given bounties of 1.8 billion berries. The two giants have now entered the top 20 highest bounties we have ever seen. They are now just below Crocodile. Unfortunately for Sanji, he's been knocked out of the top 20 as a result. The two were shaken up by the change. They didn't even plan on making a comeback. One of their crewmates mentioned how big of a leap this was from their previous bounties of 100 million berries. Robin explained that they have to account for inflation over the course of a century. Such a bounty was rather fitting for pirates of their caliber. Furthermore, and perhaps more predictably, Luffy has been blamed for the murder of Dr. Vegapunk. Frankie was frustrated by the paper's constant shifting of the narrative. Lilith couldn't stop herself from laughing since this implies that the Straw Hats killed her. Frankie told her to can it since they fought so hard to save her. Brook looked over Robin's shoulder and wondered when this picture of Luffy was taken. Jinbei was impressed by the paper's ability to always get a scoop, even in a location as remote as Egghead Island in the midst of a naval blockade. He was sure that whoever took the picture must have been paid handsomely. Robin wondered something about Luffy's new freedom form. There was a mark on his arm that she did not recognize. The others couldn't place it either, especially since Luffy tends to bounce around so much that it's hard to keep an eye on him. But something was off about it. Luffy's arm is blurry, but the mark is all too clear. Frankie wondered why she was worried about it. Robin couldn't help the feeling that this was somehow familiar. This is most likely a hidden message from Vivi, a way of confirming her location and safety to her friends in a way that no one else would be able to decode. Back on Arabasta, the Straw Hats used this X mark as a means of saying farewell to the princess without incriminating her with connections to piracy. It's vaguely familiar to Robin because she was a stowaway at the time, and it's unfamiliar to the rest of the crew because they hadn't yet joined. I'm curious to see if Vivi and Luffy will reunite before Sabo runs into either of them to impart King Cobra's final message. Since Sabo is currently gunning for the One Piece too and hasn't sought to contact them, I'm betting on Vivi being first. Dory was pleased to know that Luffy is officially shoulder to shoulder with Shanks as a fellow Yonko. Brogy laughed about the fact that their junior Harudin has sworn fealty to the Straw Hats too. Kashi chimed in to say that Harudin is actually the Prince of Elbaf. Frankie was surprised by that. Apparently, Harudin wanted to pick up the Straw Hats from Egghead himself, but Dory and Brogy won out due to seniority, which was probably for the best. Regardless, someone needed to look out for trouble on Elbaf. The mention of trouble for such an isolated and notoriously powerful land caught the crew's attention. It was explained that while Dory and Brogy were missing, things got a bit hectic thanks to Elbaf's other prince. When he was born, they called him the Accursed Prince. He turned to darkness and was sentenced to crucifixion a few years ago. The second prince tried to run away, but all the warriors of Elbaf joined forces to catch him. Frankie was stunned by the notion. Jinbei already had an idea of what the prince's name might be. The giants added that the second prince is messed up in the head. Apparently, there is a legendary devil fruit that has been passed down through the royal family. The prince wanted to eat it so badly that he killed his own father, King Harold, which was why they couldn't afford for the prince to escape. Because if he ever does, it will be the end of everything as they know it. He is the great shame of Elbaf. Which brings us to the man, the myth, and legend himself. Prince Loki sat before Luffy with a smile on his face, bandages over his eyes, and chains all over his body. This design is way too cool. Oda is such a troll for giving us that silly silhouette. I can't believe that this guy wanted Lola of all people. At this point, I don't expect Imu to look anything like the shadows we have been shown, because this is outrageously different. The prince told his visitor to state his name. Luffy happily obliged, along with the fact that he is of course the man who will be the king of the pirates. Loki held on to the notion of Luffy being a king. Luffy asked the giant where they are and who he is. Then we finally get to see it in its full glory. Warland, the mighty kingdom of Elbaf, the place that is believed to be the birthplace of war itself. Loki professed his own name, along with a declaration similar to Luffy's. He is the sun god who will bring about the end of the world. Goodness gracious, the hype is real. Loki is bound by chains. He attracted Luffy's attention by way of a roar, and there are giant wolves in the area. In Norse mythology, the most famous wolf of them all is Fenrir, the son of Loki. It seems like Oda has opted to combine the two. This Prince Loki was considered to be accursed from the moment he was born. In Norse myth, Fenrir was ordained to be a creature that would bring about great disaster from the very beginning of his life. Fenrir was known for his absurd strength, and the gods worked together to bind the beast, which lines up with this guy. Loki speaks of ending the world, and Fenrir played a major role in Ragnarok, the fabled death of the gods that would start the world anew. Ragnarok was a series of events that included Fenrir killing the Allfather, Odin, king of the gods, while Loki is confirmed to have killed his own father, King Harold. A herald is a sign of events to come, and Odin was famous for seeing into the future. There is no doubt that Elbaf's design is based on the world tree Yggdrasil, and I am very fascinated by the titanic sword that is embedded in it. By virtue of its size, we may assume that someone even bigger than Elbaf itself must have wielded it in the past. The scale of something like that is too mind-boggling to comprehend. Not even ancient giants like Oars are that big. There may have actually been titans in the past. Prince Loki's claim of being the sun god is most likely due to their cultural reverence towards the figure. It's the same reason why Road took the name while lording over humans. Prince Loki may have decided to place himself above them all by taking it. If it took all of Elbaf's combined might to stop him, Dory and Brogy aside, Loki is by far the strongest giant in the world. As the brother of Loki, Harudin is likely to be somewhat based on Thor. Luffy's ability to sense the guy is really interesting. Loki is famous for being a trickster, and Luffy isn't the brightest. So I can totally see him freeing the Accursed Prince. That would definitely shake things up. But in order to bind such a powerful man, I doubt the giants would have used regular chains. According to Norse myth, Fenrir's bindings were magically enhanced. The most reasonable equivalent for One Piece would be the use of sea stone. Elbaf has an ancient and isolated history of warriors similar to Wano, and Seastone originates from Wano. Based on Rhodes' use of Taro honorifics towards the Straw Hats, it seems like there may be even greater overlap between the two lands than we currently know. In regards to his Devil Fruit, because it has been kept within the giant royal family, it might be incredibly noteworthy and exceptionally rare. Considering their reverence towards the sun god, I'd imagine a connection of some sort is in order. Now that we know that the true name of Luffy's Devil Fruit is the Hitohito no Mi Model Nika, Prince Loki's Devil Fruit might actually be the real Gomu Gomu no Mi. It would further validate Loki's claim as a sun god, allow him to be silly, further connect him to Luffy, and overall just be a big trick that Loki the trickster actually fell for. It also wouldn't be the first time that we get to see a giant with rubbery powers connected to the sun god. Remember that Oars had access to such abilities when he had Luffy's shadow. Where there is light, there is also darkness, which is what the giants claim Loki has turned to. It seems like Elbaf may have been one of Joy Boy's allies against the 20 Kingdoms. This may have caused these somewhat similar Devil Fruits to be confused with one another enough for the real story to be lost. If Elbaf is said to be the origin point of war, this may be where the ancient war first began. Dory and Brogy have re-entered the spotlight whether they like it or not. The new giant pirates are sworn to the Straw Hat Grand Fleet and will aid them in the final war. Elder Ja Rule is bound to be positively ancient by now, since he was already really old when Big Mom was a kid. King Harold is dead, and it doesn't seem like he's been replaced since his sons are still referred to as princes. An unbound Loki won't have much in the way of opposition. Some sort of change will be necessary in order to avoid catastrophe from a military power that even the Marines fear. So yeah, let the Loki for the Straw Hats conversations begin. The manga will be going on a 2-week hiatus so Oda can conduct more research. I am so grateful that he always decides to leave us with legendary chapters ahead of any breaks. If you're excited to finally be on Elbaf, let it be known in the comments. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.